We need to talk about the newest adaptation of Wuthering Heights that came out this past weekend because its box office performance shows that there is an audience for classic stories, but did it live up to the hype? Now, there was a lot of noise surrounding this adaptation from the jump. I mean, you had a polarizing director, claims that it desecrated the source material, whitewashing allegations, and an aggressively modern soundtrack from none other than Charlie XCX of Kamala Harris as Brat fame. And I was all but prepared to make up my mind on this adaptation without ever seeing it, but this is my last video with you all for now, so I had to do my due diligence, hauled my butt to the movie theater last night, and oh boy do I have some thoughts. Now, if you haven't read Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë, here's an extremely abridged synopsis. It's her only novel, and it's published in 1847, and it follows the turbulent, obsessive relationship between Catherine Earnshaw and Heathcliff, set against the harsh, isolated moors of northern England. It's a story about love, resentment, revenge, and emotional destruction across generations. Margot Robbie, who plays Catherine, is not only an actress, but also a part-time producer on the film. And for context, she was also the producer on Barbie, if that's any indication of the creative liberties taken in this film. Opposite her is Jacob Elordi as Heathcliff, which immediately sparked controversy surrounding his casting. As you can see, Elordi is a white man, and Heathcliff is described in the original novel as a, quote, dark-skinned gypsy. So, of course, many online have been in each other's comment sections arguing over whether or not Heathcliff was canonically a person of color or just, you know, a rugged, surly, darker Caucasian man. Think Southern Italian or something, since dark features usually described people with dark hair and olive skin during that time period. And there's not one definitive right answer on this, unless someone can call up the ghost of Emily Brontë to confirm, but scholars really have argued over this for decades. Personally, I don't really care, but I can just imagine the think pieces that would come out about how racist the portrayal of Heathcliff is if he was, in fact, cast as a person of color. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. But I don't know, let me know what you think. Do you think Heathcliff is a darker white guy or actually a person of color? But putting casting aside, let's talk about the actual film. I'm coming at this as someone who loves classic literature and the original novel. I may not remember every detail, but I do know one thing. It was not the overly sexualized, shock-driven spectacle I watched for 2 hours last night. I could dive deep into every specific on why this movie would make Emily Brontë roll over in her grave, but we don't have all the time in the world, and all the criticisms really do come down to the deeper cultural rot that we've been breaking down together every single week. Aesthetically, it wasn't a bad movie, but that's to be expected from the director Emerald Fennell, whose work often prioritizes provocation over substance. The problem is that Wuthering Heights, and many classic novels for that matter, were never about spectacle. It was about emotional tension, subtext, glances, silence, and the restraint is the point. But that doesn't translate well for modern audiences, especially the audience this seems to be marketed towards, which, in my opinion, is a specific type of woman who consumes a steady diet of TikTok, sexually explicit books parading as romance novels, and, let's be honest, SSRIs. The Wuthering Heights movie replaced romantic subtleties for shock value and overly sexual montages. The look of the movie looked both expensive to produce but cheaply made, and I kid you not, every time the film began to approach something emotionally meaningful, they dropped the most synth-heavy Charlie XCX track. I could not help but laugh while I was at the theater. And most of all, everything was grotesque, visually and spiritually. And while I understand that is the director's style, maybe that's just my bone to pick with the culture in general. That we seem to seek out and are served things that are so gross and not beautiful. In just a few years, the director Emerald Fennell has found that there is a market for these shocking movies that she makes. And you know, if the market has spoken, who am I to clutch my pearls at it? But shouldn't women want more from their entertainment? Compare Wuthering Heights to another classic novel adaptation, Pride and Prejudice, the Keira Knightley version from 2005 to be specific. The simple brush of a hand, a glance shared in a crowded room, even the glint of sunlight over the moors expressed more romance than can be found in any second of Wuthering Heights from 2026. That is how you adapt a classic novel. You preserve its emotional truth. You don't just flatten it into something optimized for short attention spans. And to this day, audiences eat that movie up. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. People who care about beauty, truth, and meaning in storytelling need not isolate themselves from the culture. That is exactly how the left took total control of it in the first place. But the solution isn't to provide corny, heavy-handed, preachy alternatives. I mean, the cringe alone could repel the most conservative Gen Zers, myself included. The solution is just to create entertainment that is good, that is beautiful, that explores the inherent differences between man and woman. Create entertainment that honors God and that we're not trying to bend morals and values to our modern tastes. So spare yourself the $15 and just read Wuthering Heights instead. Your mind and spirit will be better off and more enriched for it.